Hi guys, welcome back. In this video we're going to learn how to create the 16 personality types using the Jungian Cognitive Functions. By the end of the video you will understand the principles, so you will be able to do it yourself. What we're going to do is, first of all, we have some rules that we have already established, so we're going to follow the rules, and we will need one additional rule in order to make this happen. And on the right side we have all the concepts that we have done so far, and we have them here so we can reference them if needed. So let's start first by reviewing the rules. So what are the rules? So the first rule is every type uses all four natural processes. So you can see the four natural processes here. They're sensing, intuition, thinking, and feeling. So every type has to have at least one and exactly one of those in their four function stack. The second rule is every type uses 4 of the 8 Jungian functions. So you can see the Jungian functions here, there are 8, and in the personality type we only use 4 of them. And the third rule is functional axis connection has to be satisfied. So what this means is that if the type uses, let's say, introverted intuition, well, we know that introverted intuition is connected to extroverted sensing. So it means that if the type has NI, it also needs to have SE in the stack. So this is the rule. And for now we don't have a fourth rule. Let's try to construct a type using those three rules and the concepts we have so far. So let's choose a function. So let's say extroverted intuition. So we can start with extroverted intuition here at the first slot. And we have to use now rule number 3, which is that we have this functional axis which tells us how to populate one other slot, and we know that extroverted intuition is linked with introverted sensing. And what we learned actually from the last video is also that the connection between the two is inversely proportional, meaning that if extroverted intuition is stronger, this would mean that introverted sensing is going to be weaker. And since here the extroverted intuition is the strongest function, this means that the weakest function is going to be introverted sensing. So we can populate this spot here. Now we have 2 more slots left. So what can we put there? Well, we have this first rule, which is every type uses all 4 natural processes. So what is left here from the natural processes, we already have used intuition, extroverted intuition, and the sensing, which is introverted sensing. And we are left with thinking and feeling. And we have these 2 axes here which represent thinking and feeling. And let's try now to use them. We have 4 options. So what are the 4 options? So just create here 4 options. So the options are, let's first try to use this one, TI-FE. So we can have TI here, and the last one has to be FE because we have to use all the 4 processes. And then we can start the opposite, so FETI. Then we can try with the last one as well, FITE or TE-FI. So those are all the options so far, but it turns out that 2 of those are not actual types, and this is why we need this 4th rule. So maybe you can try to guess which ones are not correct and why. But I'll reveal now what is the 4th rule. So the 4th rule is that the secondary function needs to have opposite orientation to the first one. So as we learned before, orientation means either introversion or extroversion, so this orientation, and the secondary function needs to have opposite orientation. So here in this example, the first function has extroverted orientation, meaning that the second one has to have an introverted one, which means that this one and this one are not correct, and which leaves us with those 2 options that are left here, and they are in fact indeed correct. So those 2 are actual types. So those are the types that represent the ENTP, is this one. and this one is the ENFP. So why do we not have two functions with the same orientation? Well, I think the reason is that our psychology has evolved in such a way that we need to be balanced. And imagine that this here, so this is the perception axis here, right? Because both functions are perception, and then here this is the judgment axis. We have feeling and thinking. And if both of those first two were actually extroverted, so this would mean that the individual who has this personality type, he will not be able to, he will not have any reason to go and retrieve back to himself to perform anything, because the extroverted function is dominant both on perception level and on judgment level. So he does not have anything to balance his psychology. So this is one reason that we might have evolved in order to use this balancing process, where your primary process, like your strongest one, has to be balanced with the second one, which is in the opposite orientation to the first one. By the way, the same applies if the first function was introverted. So if we had Ti as a first function, then the second one cannot be introverted. So again, the same rule. Okay. So we found two of the types. Now let's try another example. So make sure we understand how this works. So those are two of the types. Now let's try to do two more. So remove this here because which type it is yet. So the next type, let's use introvert intuition now. So we start with an introverted function. So we start with introverted intuition. By the way, here I forgot to mention, but why are they 16 types? We can understand now. So you see that we started from extroverted intuition, which is this function here, and we arrived at two types, and actually no other combination is possible when you start with extroverted intuition, which means that for extroverted intuition we have two types. And since we have 8 overall functions, this means that overall we have 2 times 8, which is 16 types. So this is how we arrive at these 16 types. Okay, now if we start with introvert intuition, what we know from the functional axis is that introvert intuition is linked with extroverted sensing. So the last spot is going to be extroverted sensing. And we know that we have 2 types here. So we are going to go and duplicate that. So we know that in the second slot here we need to have an extroverted function because of the fourth rule, and there are 2 options. It can either be Fe, which means that the third slot is Ti, or it can be Te, which means that the third slot is Fi. And those 2 types are respectively, so this is the INFJ and this is the INTJ. Okay, let's do 2 more, but so we use Te and Ti now, but without looking at the rules. So let's see if we can do that and if we understand it. So these 2 can start with Te. So 2 types with Te. If the first one is T, that means that the last function is going to be Fi based on the axis rule. And which means that the middle functions are going to be one option is Si Ne, and the other option is Ni Se. And let's do one more combination of 2. So let's do the one with the Ti now. So we have the Ti. This means the last function is Fe. Both of the types are going to have this. And there are 2 combinations for the middle slots. It has to be an extroverted function. It has to be a perception function because the first one is judgment. So here we can have extroverted intuition or extroverted sensing, which means that this one is Ni and this one is Si. And which are those types? So those types are gonna be, let's see, so this is the ESTJ, this is the ENTJ, and this is the INTP, and this is the ISTP. Okay, these are 8 of the types. I won't do the rest of the 8. You can try them yourself as an exercise, but I have them here at the bottom, so you can try them yourself. This is the result. This is the correct combinations that are left, the 8 left combinations. And so if you're wondering how did I know that this is the NTP and this is the NFP, so how do you convert between the MBTI type and this Jungian cognitive function stack? Well, we'll learn about this in the next video. Yeah, I think for this video that's all. So thank you guys for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.